Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Empowered by M's podcast. Today, I'm joined here by the lovely Mutindi Lydia Jacobs, a sister of mine who I love, adore, her style, her sense of humor. She doesn't take herself too seriously, and honestly, I think that's something we can all learn from you and just benefit from hearing about your personal journey. So I'm so excited to have you here with me today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you, sis.
Thank you for agreeing.
You're most welcome.
So Mutindi is a quintessential multi-hyphenate with a passion for many, many different things. She was originally born in Kenya, in Nairobi, to a Kenyan father and a Namibian mom, and is the eldest of two children. Ooh, big sister vibes. Mutindi's a lawyer by profession, and she specialized in the law of sea and ocean governance. Yeah. Ooh! That's one thing I didn't know about you.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just knew you did law, but not what. She's also an entrepreneur who has founded several businesses, including Karibu Flowers, which I'm sure you are all familiar with, and Karibu Home and Karibu Kouture. Her entrepreneurial journey commenced at the very tender age of 21, and when she established her first business, Karibu Events. And she has successfully launched Karibu Flowers, which is and will always be the largest online floral shop in Namibia. Kudos to you. I'm always. Mutindi is a TEDx speaker. She's an interior stylist, a homemaker, and she shares her natural ability to make everything around her beautiful via her YouTube channel, which, oh my gosh, we have a story about your YouTube channel.
Okay.
I mean, how you got started. Did you forget, sis?
Remind me.
Remember when I was training you and it was one of the things that you were like, I want to start a YouTube channel. Yes. I was there from the beginning,
just straight after Komani's I remember. I think you gave me the deadline.
And some tips and everything.
I remember now. Oh wow, dare I forget? I remember. You gave me the deadline because we said on his first birthday, I need to launch that YouTube
upload
channel.
Something.
Yeah. Wow. We come a long way, sis.
We really have.
We come a long way.
Mutindi lives by the biblical verse, your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. What a beautiful, beautiful verse. And this has inspired Mutindi to continue to share her creative gifts through creative businesses and continue to pioneer industries that have honestly never been explored before. It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to be a part of your journey and to witness you. Thank you so much for your time and for being with me today. Welcoming into your office. So let's get started, Mutindi.
Sure.
Who is Mutindi Lydia Jacobs?
Well, the summary you gave us, that's exactly what I was going to say, but you decided to read it, sis. But first of all, I like to refer to myself as a spiritual being on a human journey. I recognize that above all, I'm spirit before I'm human. And I like that to be the anchor of everything that I do. So I'm really, really anchored by my spirituality. I am, like you said, the first of two children, mother to two beautiful children, wife to my husband, Lazarus. And I'm just, I like to refer to myself as a wholesome being who's just trying to figure this thing out and just die empty. In the sense that I want to make sure that I've explored all the different facets of my personality, of my talents, of my gifts. When I go back to God, I want Him to say, so what did you do with all the gifts and talents I gave you? And I was telling God, you got some time? We're going to sit down for this because I've got so much to tell you. So that's really the principle that I try to live by. I'm trying to die empty. I'm trying to give everything that I was created with out to the world. And in so doing, just glorify the kingdom of God.
Oh, that's so beautiful, sis.
Thank you.
I love that. Die empty. Yeah. I think there's a lot of power in that because so many of us die full, but also full of the wrong things, you know, of the fears and the anxieties and the what ifs and the things we never explored that we always wanted to. Can you just share a little bit more about your personal journey from growing up to university? Yeah, getting married, motherhood. I mean, take us on a journey.
Okay. So, as you said earlier, I was born in Nairobi, Kenya. My father is Kenyan, my mother is Namibian. They met when my mother went to Kenya in exile for school. And then we moved here when I was about 4, 5. And my sister and I lived with my parents up until their divorce in 2000. So, from the age of 10, I was basically brought up in a single parent home. And that was, I mean, it's not without its challenges. It was really hard. And my therapy during that time, just how I recovered from the divorce and the dysfunction of my family then, was really how I got to identify a lot of my gifts and talents, because that's when I started organizing the house, decorating it, just as a coping mechanism, because I didn't know what to do with all of this sadness and all of this anxiety that I was dealing with. So I found that as an avenue in which I could just manage my feelings. That's how I got into that. So grew up, went to Windhoek High School. After Windhoek High School, in grade 12, I started questioning, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to study? Initially, I've always been a very creative person. I used to draw. So all of my school books, you've got these little drawings of dresses and all that. So I initially wanted to study fashion design, but I'm a person who likes money. I'm not even afraid to admit it. And I did the calculations. I went online, researched what do fashion designers in Namibia get paid.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very impressed by the numbers they were showing me. And I thought, no, with the lifestyle that I want to live, this is not going to work. Let me park this. I can always do it part-time.
Yeah.
But let me try and do something that's a little bit more substantive, something that will anchor me financially. So I opted to do law. And my mom is a judge, so I have that background. Went to university, did law. When I was at UNAM, I realized very early on that I actually enjoyed business, and I had a knack for selling things very easily. So as a student at UNAM, I would sell handbags and shoes from my car. During class, I would pass on. I had this little album with pictures of shoes that I had taken off from my supplier, and I would pass it on in class. People would place their orders. I'll go pick up the shoes and deliver them. So I've always been a hustler. Emily, I've always been a hustler. And I started enjoying that at one point more than I was enjoying law school. So after I got my BJS, I told my mom, no, I want to quit. I want to not quit because I'd gotten my first degree, but I wanted to end there and go and do business administration. She was like, no,
ma'am.
not under my roof. You're going to finish what you started. So I finished what I started, and I think in my third year of university, in my fourth year of first year LLB, I started my first business, Karibu Events. I did event management, wedding planning, and I started that business at the age of 21 when girls my age were not really in business, and that industry was not saturated as it is now. So I made money. I made good money, and I shopped and I spent it all.
I love it.
But it was fun. It was definitely, that was basically part of my school fees, paying my school fees in business, learning what to do, what not to do, how to manage people. And at that point, I think at one point I employed 8 people. So it was a lot. It was a lot, always constantly having to worry about salaries, paying bills. Managing a business is not an easy thing to do. But I'm very happy for the lessons it taught me. So I got employed in 2013 at the Ministry of Justice at the Directorate of Law Reform, which is where I'm still working. And in 2015, I went to study. I went to do my master's in the law of the sea and ocean governance. Came back. During the time I'd met my husband, he started courting me, long distance relationship, and then boom, 2017 we got married. 2018 I had my son. 2020 I had my daughter. And in between all of that, I've been able to start other businesses, Karibu Flowers being one of them, my master classes, my interior styling businesses. So that's in a nutshell what I've been doing since the beginning of my birth and until now.
That is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, because you can know somebody, and I've known you for a while, but I've never heard your personal story, and I've never heard it from you that way. I've heard you speak at events too, but it's always different variations of the story and different parts of the story that are shared. So this is really beautiful to hear.
Thank you.
Wow. You've been busy.
I've been busy.
I want to know how you managed your time as a university student and being an employer.
Hi. This is the grace of God. You see, there are people who are who are very good at multitasking, and people who are not. I think I'm one of the people who are good. I actually thrive at having a lot to do. I'm not one of those people who can just do one thing. I could never be just a student who goes to school, does assignments, does exams. I've got too much, I think, mental capacity and energetic capacity to just focus on one thing. I'd always have to manage different things. So it's definitely a personality type, in my opinion. And that being a personality type means that it's a little bit easier for me. I just go with the flow and I learn how to manage my time. So without its challenges, there are times where one aspect of what you're doing is going to suffer because you are putting more effort and more attention into this. But eventually you learn how to manage it. So I give myself enough grace to know that, okay, maybe this is not thriving. Maybe my school is not thriving, but my business is. But eventually when I realize that there's a disproportionate imbalance, then I, do what I need to do to just sort of bring it back. So you're constantly trying to just juggle it. And it goes the same for family life, for work life, business life. You're not going to perform at your optimum at all times. You need to have enough grace to say that, okay, family is thriving, business is a little bit here, but I'll do what I can to just get it back.
Right? Just like troubleshooting as you go a lot.
I give myself grace.
Oh, and I think that's the most beautiful thing that I only recently learned how to do for myself as well, which is extending myself grace. Oh my goodness, I only realized how much I was such a harsh critic of myself, how much I just did not allow myself room to breathe. And a lot of us we're living like that in our own heads. So we don't even need the outside world to do it for us. So on top of that, we have the outside world throwing it on us, then we're having it from the inside. It's just, it can be so overwhelming, and you can literally feel like you just can't do anything. It can lead to paralysis, because that oftentimes I found myself doing nothing, because I would just be like, well,
but that's not a bad
I have
thing
so much to do.
That's not a bad thing in itself.
Doing
just
nothing, right?
Switching off, disengaging, and saying, you know what, I'm tired, I'm not going to deal with this. I'll come back when I'm stronger.
I do that a lot more now, but without the narrative of like, I have failed and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I have also learned the importance of resting and receiving. Right? How can we be in the energy of receiving and getting back what we are putting out there, right? The seeds that we're sowing. The plants literally need time to come. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we need to like learn how to just take a step back and just be, because we're just constantly doing and doing and doing. But it's not our fault, really. We've been programmed through society, living in this masculine society that we live in.
Capitalist society.
So my sis, how would you define purpose?
So I'll give you an analogy that explains it perfectly for me. So imagine God is a manufacturing company, and God manufactures people. So each and every person that God manufactures is born with a purpose. That is a reason why they were created. So imagine we are cell phones. If you're a cell phone, your purpose is to facilitate the calling of the transfer of communication via calling, texting, whatever. So purpose is doing what you were created to do. Now, it becomes a problem when a cell phone is trying to iron clothes, because the cell phone was not created for the function of ironing clothes. It was created for the function of facilitating communication. So purpose is that thing, and for me, I use the word purpose and gift interchangeably, because I think they are so closely related, if not the same thing. So for me, when I think of purpose and gift, I think about the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. The song that goes and moves within you, that you were designed and created by the manufacturer from the factory to sing to the world. So that's how I define purpose. And it becomes effortless, it becomes seamless when you are living your purpose. So you find a lot of people who don't know their purpose. You find a lot of people who are struggling because they are in a job that does not fulfill their purpose. So in those instances, when you've got someone who's struggling, is because it's a cell phone trying to be an iron. So that's how I try and navigate.
Wow, I think that's the most beautiful way I've heard it put, and it has never made more sense, because I was definitely a cell phone trying to be an iron for a lot of my life.
Sis, don't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you do step into it, what I have seen is that so many other things also then reveal themselves.
The door's open.
Like, because you were blocking the one that was on your heart, you couldn't even see all of the other things and all the other potential that could be, and all of the other talents that lay dormant within you that are just waiting for the time to really come up and be expressed. So, my sis, I want you to chat a little about how purpose and Karibu and all the things that you do tie in together. What is the one thread?
So, I believe that my purpose and my gift is to share my talents, my creativity with people, and I'll explain. So, we are all born very creative beings, and somehow life, society, through our nurturing process, sometimes it's beaten out of us, or it's not celebrated enough, and you lose it. But I've been very fortunate in that. Number one, I think my mom identified what my talents and my gifts were from a very young age, and she gave me the opportunity to exercise them. And for example, with like I was explaining, my therapy when my parents divorced, how I coped with that was by cleaning and organizing and making our house look nice. So my mother would travel every week, every second week, because she was a regional court magistrate. And so she would travel on Sunday and come back on Friday. So when my mother would come back on Friday, in anticipation of her return, I would always do something around the house, just to, move the sofa here, put this plant over there, just do something so that she would feel welcome when she came home. And she would feel like, oh, wow, you did something new to the place. So the happiness that my mother would feel walking into the house is clean, the house is organized, is something that always fueled me. And when my mother would return on Friday, she's a socialite. She loves social, to socialize. So my mother would return on Friday. Friday evening, she'd always have friends over, and I would basically become the de facto host. So I'd be the one who's getting the food together, getting the platters together. That time we used to do little platters with sausages and boerewors, and we put them on toothpicks with the cheese and tomato. And my mother's friends would go crazy. They're like, "Oh my goodness, this is hotel food!" It was very easy to impress them. But my mother realized that I did that very effortlessly, and I had so much joy. And she started renting me out to her friends. Her friends would be having friends over, and they would be calling me to come and help them do that. So that hosting, and that just getting everything organized, making things beautiful. It's something that my mother recognized very early, and she nurtured me and encouraged me. In terms of Karibu Events, I actually started. It was an epiphany that I had. I was washing dishes one day, and literally the voice of God spoke with me and told me, "I need you to leave the dishes, go get a piece of paper and pen. We need to talk. I'm going to tell you some stuff." I sat down and I started writing everything that was just coming through me. And he told me what to do. He told me what I was going to call the business, why I was going to call it Karibu, and or how I would get the funding and everything. He basically just gave me the business plan for Karibu Events at the time. And I sat down with my mom, told her what I had, heard from God, and she supported me. And I think she gave me I started the business with $18,000. She gave me, I think, $11,000, and I topped up the rest, and then I was able to register the business shortly thereafter. So the reason why I started Karibu Events, number one, was because we lived in Vanaheda, Kouture, and every time we'd have events, like I said, my mom was she loves to socialize, would want to hire out tents and tables and chairs, and would go to the town companies to cater hires, all these big companies that were all owned by white people. And I'll tell you, we don't come to Kouture, straight up. So those type of services, that time, growing up, didn't come to Kouture. You remember, it was even a time where you could deliver something, like you can order food or whatever. They don't come to Kouture. So that was my experience growing up. And it frustrated me that we also want to have nice looking events. We also want our houses to, our events to look nice and all that. So it was actually in response to that. I wanted to make sure that people in my area in Kouture could also experience finesse, beautiful things. So that was really the essence with which I started that business. And we're able to do it until 2018. Just style events, give people dignified events, And I just wanted to make sure that regardless of where we are, regardless of how small our houses are, we steward them properly and we celebrate them. And that's also just something my mom has always taught me, that it doesn't matter how big or small your house is, whether you're in Lubis or whether you're in Vanaheda or Kouture, you should always have a beautifully kept house. So that's a really strong principle that I kept with me. And it sort of flowed into all of my businesses. Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've seen you take so much pride in, being over to your house and treating you there. And you just you take a lot of pride in that, and even in the way that you teach it, I love it because it's very embodied. It's something that it is just you, and it's not something you're just saying like, yeah, guys, have pride. It's something you have lived.
Absolutely.
You understand it, and it really comes through. It comes through really, really beautifully. So, my sis, what are some of the things that you've had to overcome in order for you to find yourself living your purpose path and doing the things?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Right? I'm like listening to you and I'm like, it all sounds so amazing.
That's a very good question. Since I had to let go of a lot of limiting beliefs. I think just it's a human condition to just limit yourself and to just think that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not enough. So a lot of that I had to go through and just decide that, you know what, no one is born an expert at no one is born an expert at anything. You don't have someone who's born a financial analyst. They had to learn to become a financial analyst. You don't have an interior stylist that's just born an interior stylist. They had to learn. So once I realized that everything that I want to do is on the other side of me learning it, I think that was when I just opened up the door to my power and my personal power. My husband has also been very encouraging in that early on when we got married, he told me that he will always do everything that he can to support my self-actualization. And he told me that he'll give me the space that I need to self-actualize. So that's been very, very fortunate. I've been very, very fortunate to have married someone who recognizes the importance of me growing into my full, despite the fact that I'm a mother and a wife, he allows me that space to grow and do things that I love and to experiment with this and experiment with that, to self-actualize because he wants me whole. So the going back to the challenges is definitely those self-limiting beliefs. I think that's really for me the only challenge that I can say. That's just that mental challenge. Yeah, that's really been the only thing that can. Yeah, because once you get over that, it's the world is it's limitless.
And I love what you said about learning. Limitless. You become limitless when you realize that you are in fact limitless yourself.
We are,
and
we really are.
We need to wake up. We need to wake up to that, because every time I put out a piece of content, I create a podcast, I interview a guest. My end goal is to just help somebody, like I call it lifting the veil, to just wake up somehow, or just plant the seed so that maybe later on down the line, then they will be like, oh my God, this is what I heard and this is how it makes sense. And then they change their life, they shift their life, because I believe that a lot of us are just not doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're doing what we've been told to do all our lives, what we've seen modeled, what we have been told is successful, what will lead you down the path of success. So to rewrite that for yourself, I think has been, especially for me, very empowering, and has helped me almost just throw out all of the conditioning, because I'm I was told for so long that I couldn't do this, or that this wouldn't work, it wouldn't be successful, I wouldn't be able to survive and live off this, and it's just no. It's not true. It's just a story. And what you say about learning, especially, I say that all the time. Whenever I have an idea and I want to do something, and and I've never done it and it scares me, I'm okay, I need to do it.
Yeah.
I'm I'm scared. Okay. I'm let me
do it
go.
Anyways.
Yeah, let me go. I lean into that fear even more, especially when I feel myself trying to self-sabotage and procrastinate it and put it off. I'm just rip off the Band-Aid. Just go. Put it out there. Say you're doing it or whatever, so that you learn as you go, because you sitting back and just saying, oh, I don't know how to, you're just never going to figure it out.
No, you won't.
It's
I love how you call it out. You are able to identify that I'm self-sabotaging, I'm fearful. I love that a lot of us are not having those conversations with ourselves. We're just allowing all of this to happen. I love that you pause and you say, this is fear, I'm going to do it anyway. Calling it out, I think you can't heal what you don't reveal. So revealing it to yourself then you're definitely on the path of healing it and overcoming it.
And turning it into your power.
Indeed. Since I must congratulate you, what you said just now about the purpose of your podcast and what you're doing to unveil and to just hopefully have one or two people have these aha moments when they're listening to your podcast and the content that you create. I think that's a beautiful purpose to anchor what you're doing on. And I don't think you should take it for granted or even take it lightly, because you are saving people, you are saving lives, you are saving consciousness, you are saving, what you're doing is the spark for someone just awakening, because a lot of people are asleep. A lot of us are walking around just as zombies. Just life is just happening to us. So what you're doing is helping people to awaken. You are doing God's work. So I must commend you for that. And
thank you so much, sis. I appreciate
it's beautiful what you're doing, sis. Well done.
Thank you. You know,
power to
ah,
yeah, well done, sis.
You can get so lonely.
I hear
so
you.
I love this.
But your people will
this
come.
for me. Yeah,
your people will come.
My people will come, and to talk about that a little bit. How has the power of, or how has community played a role in your healing, in your purpose discovery, in your living your life?
That's a good question. Community. In my immediate community, my family married a beautiful, excellent, best husband. That was very important. I think people take for granted how important it is to marry well.
Marry well, and my friends.
Marry well is not about the financial.
No.
Marry well. Marry the soul. Yes. Marry a good spirit, a good-hearted person. It's the single most important decision you ever make. It's the difference between life and death. So I was very fortunate in that I married well. So my immediate community, my husband was my biggest support system. I've got friends, I've got industry friends. I'm very big on collaboration, this. So I've managed to have a very strong community of like-minded businesswomen. We come together when we're struggling. Shiwa is my number one go-to. And I'm talking about, we talk every day. Wow. I'm constantly troubleshooting something in her business, and she's constantly troubleshooting something in my business. But that sense of community is so important, because it lets you know that you're not alone. Often you are stuck with this problem and you think, shit, and you're actually ashamed of it. You're embarrassed. You carry shame because you think you're the only one who's going through this. You're the only one who's made this mistake. So community for me has been important in that it has shown me that I'm just another one of the 8 billion people in this world, and the mistake I'm making is not new to me. And because other people have overcome them, I too can overcome them. So a community has been very important for me in that sense. It just validates my human condition, my whatever experience I'm going through, and lets me know that I'm not alone, and also just really emphasizes the fact that I can overcome.
I think that's so beautiful. That is really, really where the power is in community. Knowing that you're not walking this alone, your experience is not just you. There's a lot of power in that. It's already so soothing just to, it's a little co-regulation. Like, oh my God, I'm not in this alone.
There's nothing like knowing that, the bank called me, my account is in the minus. Oh, they called you too. We're okay. We're okay. Says there's something in collaborative suffering. Honestly, it makes you feel.
It's a misery-loving company.
No, I tell you, it helps. It just
but it's honest,
better.
I think it's the most productive way to misery love company.
Indeed. No, it helps.
And how have you dealt with, or if at all, any competition or jealousy or, not so pleasant energy with other feminine?
You know what? I don't pick up those things very easily. And I think it's mostly because I just try and operate at a very high vibrational frequency. So a lot of these emotions that you're talking about, envy, jealousy, are very low level frequency vibrations. So they don't reach you. You have to rise up here to come and find me here. And I say that in all humility. I because I don't focus on it, I don't really experience it. For me, the moment I see a black person in business, I am filled with joy, because I want to bring as many of us along. So even when I see companies doing flowers, there are a lot of industry people. Now I've closed Karibu Flowers. And the first thing that I did when I made the announcement is I referred all of my clients to these other black-owned businesses. Because for me, they are sisters. There's a sisterhood. I would rather collaborate. Even if we're doing the same thing, we can find ways to collaborate. So it's never been in my nature to, sit and fester in the energy of competition and jealousy and envy. It doesn't feed my soul. So I can't, it's difficult for me to respond. I would not say I've had an experience where I had some negative energy and maybe they felt it, but I definitely didn't.
And I think that's really beautiful. That says a lot with how one's perspective, one's own inner lens colors how you move through the world. Because I'm sure there could be many people who'd be like, yeah, no, she was like this, or Mutindi thinks she's this, and like, or she thinks she's all that, but like, she's like, no, that's just not the messaging, it's not the branding, it's not the energy at all. And if that's what you're feeling, it might be coming from you.
Yeah, probably a you problem. Oh, that's just no. Women, we are too. You see, all these things are distractions. These putting up women against each other, these are all distractions, putting black people up against each other. We are being distracted. What we need to do is work together. What we need to do is love each other. Because we're just feeding into this.
Yeah, the other narrative that is completely disempowering us as a people.
No, I'm all for empowerment. That is what I stand for. That is what I stand for.
And that's one thing I can always say that I felt with you. So very safe in your energy, very safe in your presence. Yeah, very loving. Always. That's always been how you receive me.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing.
And likewise.
Oh, thank you.
We are vibrating here.
My friend. So how important would you say it is for people to take the time to wake up, to discover their purpose, to look into themselves, to get to know themselves, to spend time alone in silence?
It's the most important endeavor that you'll ever undertake. The most important.
I don't think I've ever read the quote, your most important project, or the most important project you'll ever work on is you.
Yeah.
I've never felt it more than I do now today in this life that I'm living. Like, whoa, me. Because so many of us are putting ourselves second, third, fourth, fifth on our to-do list.
Right.
How are we ever supposed to be able to get ourselves to the point where our minds, our thoughts, our habits are supporting the quality of life that we want to experience?
Right.
If we're not working on these things.
Right.
I mean, I'm answering your question.
Thank you. I agree 100%. It's definitely the most important endeavor you'll ever undertake. You can't give if you're pouring out of an empty cup. So you can only pour into other people when you're full inside. How do you get full inside? By self-actualizing, self-development every day, doing something to fill yourself up, living in love. You can't give love if you don't have love. So I think that the essence, this entire human experience experiment, like my husband likes to call it, is really about self-actualizing so that you can give the world yourself. Yeah. Humanity is only served by people who know what their purpose is. Humanity is only served by people who know, who have filled themselves up so much that there's an overflow to give out. So it's very important, and it's very urgent. Yes. It's urgent. Yes. Because we are running out of time. Every single day we are closer to our death.
Oh. Yeah. This has been so beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't want it to end.
Oh, neither do I. Ask 3 more questions.
I'm going to ask one more before I ask my closing question.
Okay.
This question, I just wrote it. I just said, how do you do it all? Because I was like, I'm sure people look at it like, how? And so stylish.
Oh, thank you. Remember what I told you? We are not going to look like our problems. What we are not going to do is to look like our problems. Sis, what's the alternative?
I think that's the best.
What's the alternative? Not do?
Yeah.
Not have work? Not have a business? Not be married? Not have children? What's the alternative? You do what you gotta do. You put your big panties clothes on and you do what you gotta do. Yeah. And you remain prayerful and ask God for grace, favor, and the energy and the strength to do it. But there's no alternative.
And there's no alternative. And in those moments where the energy isn't there, that's where you extend yourself grace. And you said she's really good at extending herself grace.
Yes. Like now, the reason why I closed Karibu is like, I'm tired. I need to rest. I need to focus on some other stuff. But grace. Yeah. The world will give you enough negative talk. You don't need to be adding on that list. Giving that to yourself. So grace. Right. You're only human.
Silence that inner critic. So just based on your experiences and your expertise, what is an actionable insight or piece of advice that you can offer our listeners today that will just help them live a more empowered, purpose-led life?
I would just encourage people to identify what their purpose and their gift is. And like I said, your purpose or your gift is the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. The universe opens up for you when you're living in your purpose. And you can move, you're not a tree. If you're in a job that doesn't feel fulfilling, if you're waking up and just existing and living, you're probably not operating in your purpose. So just prioritize identifying what your purpose is and do one thing every day towards actualizing that purpose and that gift. You owe it to the world to live in your true purpose. And I just want people to prioritize that.
I think it sounds so beautiful and fluffy. Because when I used to hear this, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Do you live in your purpose, whatever that means. But I was so disconnected from what it meant and what it could feel like and how beautiful life could be when you are walking in that path and how things just almost fall out of thin air and you also evolve as a person so much. It can feel kind of far away.
I hear you.
If you just
intangible. So maybe I should ask you the question then. What did you do just practically to get to that place where you knew what your purpose was and what you needed to do to start living in it?
I think similar to how you said you heard a voice that told you about what Karibu Events was going to be.
Right.
I heard a voice as well at my previous job. Every time I was at work, I would hear a voice saying, "It's time to leave. It's time to leave. Emily, it's time to go." And I was like, like for a few months, I just ignored it. But I always heard the voice when I was at my desk at work. Nowhere else, not in the gym. But at that job, and eventually I was like, fine, I'm gonna leave because I knew there was always a thing there but now to hear it and almost coming from inside me, I was like, and it being so persistent and calm and knowing what I know now. About that voice, it was higher self, source, God, whoever the entity is that you call upon when you're praying, and it's a voice that is calm, it's persistent, it's not going to come there and like make you feel all frantic like your ego would. Your ego would come and tell you, no, you can't leave, because if you leave, like, what are you going to do? You're not going to have money. No. So it was the complete opposite in terms of the voices I would hear, because that one would feel so calm and supportive. And I just decided to lean into it and to really just see, because I felt like I was, and trust, felt like I was approaching 30 and I had been living a life that wasn't mine. Is what I started to feel like. I was like,
it's not me.
I looked around and I was like, wait a minute.
I'm not supposed to be here.
How I dress, how I speak, how I show up, I'm conditioned. I am this version of me that is masked. I am not really my true self. I don't honor my boundaries in its totality. I people please to a detriment. Like all of these things that were just now in my face. I have limiting beliefs around money, around my abilities and my potential. Like so much then started to come at me. And it's through working through all that I am now like sound and grounded. But that doesn't come unless you create that space for, I guess, a bit of chaos to ensue. And then just figure it out along the way. Yeah, but a lot of us are not willing to just not know what's next.
Would you say guidance was an important aspect of what you went through?
I think yes, having that inner voice that felt like I could trust it. I was like, you know what? It's going to work out. I don't know how it's going to look like, but it's going to figure itself out.
I was told it's going to work out.
Right? I was told it's going to work out. So the how stuff is none of my business. And when you also understand that so many of us spend time on the how, trying to figure out how am I going to get myself from A to B. When you're just supposed to dream and hold the dream true and figure out why you want it and what it really means to you and what you're going to do with it when you get it. But we're stuck on the how.
We get fixated on the how. Like you said, it's not our business.
It's not our business.
You need to surrender. You need to surrender to it.
Sis, This has been so lovely.
It was. When can we do it again?
Right? Thank you so much for having us.
Wholesome.
You need to tell our listeners where they can find you and keep up with your work and whatever new exciting ventures are coming up. I know she didn't spill any tea. I tried to get it out of her.
Sis, they can follow me on Instagram, Mutindi Lydia Jacobs. I've also got a YouTube channel. I've been neglecting that. I haven't done a video this year, but I'll drop something soon. I think we've got a highlight video for my masterclass last year, so I think I'll be dropping that next week. And then I'll also be announcing the dates for my masterclass for this year. We are going to do 2 in Windhoek, 1 in the north and 1 in Stockholm. Sorry. So you can look out for those. And yeah, I'm really easy to get to.
Yeah.
Drop me a DM on Instagram, and as long as your intentions are pure, we'll connect.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're gonna fall on the wayside. I will leave all of her links in the show notes so that you guys can click through and connect with Mutindi. She is truly just a gem. A gem. I'm so glad. It's not by mistake. When I sit back and I look at all of the women I've gotten to work with, I'm like, this is not a coincidence. Like how
it never is.
How powerful and how unique and how beautiful and each and every one of you are. And I look at it and I'm just like, when I had the idea to bring guests on and especially focus on women as guests, I was like, I actually have so many people I can ask to come on this podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, you could think like you're not really doing much, or you're not connecting, or you don't really know people. Right. It can feel so alone, but you never are. You never are alone. Because people like you exist in the world, sis. I want to thank you once again, celebrate you. Thank you. I keep saying I have no words, but I have all the words for you because I just love you, sis. I love you too. I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and you just welcomed me so beautifully into your home and with your beautiful children. Oh, I love it.
Please come and visit.
Please. Muffins. Yes. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode. I will catch you in the next one. Bye. Bye.